welcome to Murphy's Garden. So we're in Sheffield at the moment, and this is a park called Pounds Park, and it was recently redeveloped. I'm pretty sure, well, when I first moved to uni here, this was all just a construction site, so there was nothing really much to see, but recently they've completed it all and it's really lovely. The company who've done all the building work and all the play equipment is called Timber Play, and I know that they've taken on quite a few students from the university, and they've probably helped out with this project too. So I thought we'd just have a little walk around and just show you some of the things that are synonymous with Sheffield and how they've brought the Peak District into a very urbanised area, and how they've also incorporated naturalistic play within a large city too. So a lot of the planting that they've used in here, and because Sheffield is really known for flooding, as it's surrounded by quite a lot of rivers, you can see they've put in drainage and they've also lined it with gravel. So this is a type of SUD, which is short for Sustainable Urban Drainage System. So this just helps with heavy rainfall, and the planting helps to absorb the water to prevent flooding. And if it does get flooded, it's kind of like a water channel, so it would kind of turn into a riverbed, and the plants will be completely fine with that. And then if we look at the materials as well, so on the floor is sandstone, which is locally sourced. So it kind of has that tie to the Peak District. And then if you see the little moon shapes on here, this is a way to prevent skateboarding, so it doesn't damage the edges. And they've done that in quite a clever way where it doesn't impact that much on the seating and it doesn't detract from the nice material. And then over there you can see some people climbing on that climbing wall. And this is a really good way just to add a bit of interest to the landscape and create, I don't know, kind of like just a different environment and a different type of play that is for adults as well as children. So it kind of can be used by a lot of different people. And then the seating on here, we did a research project around this area, and we were all wondering why they've put handles in quite odd places. And if you look round, a lot of the seats tend to be the same width and the same length, and this is because they don't want an increase in homeless people in this area or sleeping on the benches, which is quite sad. But this has been done alongside the local government, so that's obviously something they don't really want in this area. As I mentioned before, this was all built by a company called Timber Play. I think they're based in Sheffield, but it's really lovely, the colour of the wood, how it doesn't detract, and it's not really brightly coloured, it's all very naturalistic looking. But they've gone to a lot of effort, and they've even got lots of water involved, and it's just really nice. So we're now just going to head to Charter Square, which has also been recently redeveloped, and it's got quite a similar materiality and characteristics with this area too. They've used a lot of the same materials, so we'll go and have a look at that too. This is the start of Charter Square. There's a bit over there, but this is the main focus of it. So behind me here, this used to be a Debenhams. And then there's a cinema here and a restaurant, so it's quite interesting to see. The Debenhams has now closed down, so it's not in use, so it's quite interesting to see the difference in people in the area and how it's being used. I can't remember how many years ago this was redeveloped, but it's interesting to see again they've got the sandstone, which links back to the children's playground, and they've also used granite blocks, which contrasts really nicely, and I really like the difference in sizing as well. It adds quite a lot of textural differences, as well as still being safe for wheelchair users and things like that. So it's interesting to see how they've managed the level changes. So they've got a main flight of stairs that go that way, but there's also a ramp that follows all the way down. So it's interesting to see how they've got that choice. So this is obviously a much slower pathway, and it's got areas of seating which feels quite secluded, so people who work in this area, it gets used quite a lot to come and eat your lunch. And there's a lot of similar planting to the area that we saw before, so we've got the multi-stem birch trees, and then we've got achillea, rosemary for that scented aspect, unanimous. What else have we got? Sedums, miscanthus grasses, quite similar like tones and textures to what we saw before. Just a thing of note, these little gaps in the border edging is to help with drainage. So this allows the water collected from the plants to just drain out. And yeah, it works quite well, I think. And then we've got lighting as well. These are stones. I'm pretty sure this is sandstone, but when we were coming here, we were all trying to guess what these marks were for. And I know that when they were doing this area, they were wondering whether or not to hide these or to turn the stone a different way so you can't see them. But these are actually formed by the construction, like getting them in. So this is formed by like the machinery they would use to extract the rock. So, but they thought it would be quite nice to show it because it kind of shows the story of how it's been transported and then eventually ended up here. And then the bolts obviously are on show too to bolt it in place. And yeah, the ones down here all have the same too. And then they're just there to stop skateboarding there. So on the steps, this might be a bit boring to people, but I find this quite interesting. So 4 steps, there's so much to consider when it comes to the construction, and they're all called tactiles. So you've got, this is called corduroy, and you have to have this, so it has to be DDA regulated, and there has to be a specific gap between where the step starts and where the corduroy starts. And this also has to be a specific width as well. And then this on the end, I can't remember what it's called, but that's just like help with grip and things like that. And then when stairs are a certain height and you've got a certain number of them, it then requires hand railings as well. So obviously because this has got quite a lot of steps, you need that extra support. These seats are made from hardwood, and they've actually put a varnish and a stain over it, which looking at it, I don't think they should have, because naturally this type of wood, it naturally turns grey with age, and I actually think that grey look would have looked quite nice. And as you can see, the varnish is kind of starting to wear off it. So I think in hindsight, they probably didn't need to do that because it is a hardwood, so it will be really long lasting. They could have just put some sort of sealant on it, because I don't really think the stain was necessary. And you can even see they've got some like drips on it and stuff. So I think that the greyish hardwood with age would have looked quite nice. And they've also got the slits in the wood, so that really helps with water, so it stops water from sitting on top and getting really wet. It helps it to dry a bit quicker so people can sit on it, and stops things like algae and mould and things like that. So they've also included loads of liquid amber trees, especially in the area over there that's by the cinema. And liquid amber are a really good tree for cities. They're really good for reducing pollution, and they have that really beautiful autumnal interest too. And they're a really good size for a city tree because although they do get quite big, they really give that interest and also that depth that you kind of want to green up a city. And also, I'm pretty sure this is what it's for. I'm not 100%, but I'm just presuming. They've got kind of like slits or different sizes of square around the outside, and I'm presuming this is to stop the material, like the paving that they've put around it, from splitting and cracking, and it's so that they can take it out once the tree gets bigger and bigger, which is quite clever. And also I guess it acts as a drainage system in the meantime when they're still quite young, which is quite a good idea. We are now heading further into the city to visit Sheffield's Grey to Green, which is a large-scale urban renewal project aimed at transforming former roadways and underutilised spaces into vibrant green corridors and sustainable public areas. Initiated in 2014, the project focuses on repurposing obsolete infrastructure to create environmentally friendly and flood-resilient spaces while also enhancing the city's aesthetic and social value. The scheme design was done by Sheffield City Council with Robert Bray Associates, and the planting design was completed by Nigel Dunnett, who is one of the lecturers at the university, as well as Zach Tudor, and they currently have a 3-year establishment phase for the maintenance, which is done by Green Estate. Greater Green is one of the UK's largest retrofit SUDS project and also the UK's largest inner city green street. The design work for the project started in 2014 with phase 1 of the 1.6 kilometre scheme installed in 2016, and phase 2 is currently under construction, spanning across some of the key areas in the city centre, particularly in the West Bar, Castlegate and Riverside area. It incorporates extensive planting of wildflowers, trees and other greenery, along with the creation of rain gardens that help manage stormwater and reduce flood risks. These rain gardens are sustainable drainage systems, or SUDS, and are essential in making the area more resilient to climate change and heavy rainfall, which has been a challenge for Sheffield in the past, particularly in this location. Throughout the scheme are also a number of totem-like structures filled with sculptures and carvings. These sculptures in phase 1 are made from stone and metal and incorporate stories of the area, together with eye-catching mirror and lighting effects. In phase 2, the artworks are made from wood and are designed to create habitats for the wildlife that is returning to the area. The designs of both phases are inspired by the vibrant history of Sheffield. In this video we only completed phase 1 of the project, but it spans throughout the city and looks just as beautiful. It uses quite a lot of the similar materials and plantings, so it looks really cohesive throughout the city. Another thing to mention is that on the third Sunday of every month, it's also home to Pollen, which is an inner city flower market. And I have been there a few times and highly recommend it. It's become one of Sheffield's best loved outdoor markets, and there's things like botanical prints, house plants, dried flowers. I really recommend if you're ever in Sheffield. Um, Thank you so much for watching. I hope it's not been too boring. I find things like this really interesting, but I am doing landscape architecture and I do have to hyper-analyse everything, but it's quite interesting to see how they've greened up this area in the city, and it's made quite a big impact to the area and gives it a completely different feel to what it was like before, and just goes to show that in a city you can really make a difference. And in Sheffield, where it's synonymous with industrialisation and can sometimes be a bit grotty, it looks really nice and works really, really well. So thanks very much for watching.